If reason is our greatest tool for understanding the world, why do we sometimes sense that truth can only be felt, not proven? Most people can recall decisions that felt right before the arguments for them were clear. At the same time, we live in an age that privileges data, procedures, and external validation. The paradox is straightforward. Rational systems rely on evidence outside us. Yet many of our most meaningful judgments about love, morality, and purpose arise as inner certainties. This lecture examines that paradox through the philosophy of Ibn Arabi, the 12th–13th century Andalusian thinker who argued that the heart kalb is an instrument of knowledge, a kind of inner compass for truth. We will place his claims in conversation with contemporary psychology and neuroscience, exploring intuition, interoception, and the regulation of emotion. The aim is not to romanticize feeling, but to describe a disciplined integration of intellect and heart that improves judgment, reduces noise, and supports coherent action in modern life. The dominance of external verification has created an imbalance. Metrics, algorithms, and public opinion often serve as surrogates for certainty. The result is an individual who is highly informed yet internally disoriented. Cognitive overload, too many inputs, competing for limited attentional resources, weakens intuitive discrimination. Attention fragments and shallow processing replaces reflective evaluation. From a neuroscientific perspective, the default mode network DMN becomes overactive under conditions of rumination and anxiety. Rather than generating insight, self-referential thinking loops back on itself, producing noisy introspection, a subjective sense of thinking hard without moving closer to clarity. Psychologically, this leads to reduced self-trust and over-reliance on external authority. Culturally, a productivity mindset elevates measurable output over inner coherence, encouraging comparison and second-guessing. Ibn Arabi anticipated this problem in a different vocabulary. He argued that when the mind is cut off from the deeper faculty of the heart, it loses the ability to discern reality's qualitative dimensions. Our working question becomes practical. How does the heart know? And how can we restore its function as an instrument of perception without abandoning rational rigor? Ibn Arabi 1165 sampai 1240 CEE, often called Al-Shaq, Al-Akbar, the greatest master, is best understood as a philosopher of consciousness rather than a sentimental mystic. His core claim is epistemic. The heart kalb is the locus of marifa, direct knowing that completes what the senses and intellect begin. The term kalb derives from takalub, to turn or to transform. Capturing its dynamic role, it can orient toward the human and the divine, integrating multiple perspectives. For Ibn Arabi, intellect AKL analyzes and differentiates. The heart synthesizes and recognizes. True knowledge requires both. Modern cognitive science reaches a comparable conclusion, distinguishing analytical intelligence, rule-based, slow, from effective and embodied intelligence, fast, pattern-sensitive, context-aware. The question is not which is superior, but how they operate together to produce accurate, ethical, and timely judgment. Concept Ibn Arabi holds that perception is not restricted to the five senses or abstract reasoning. The heart itself perceives. In his framework, the heart is the interface between spirit and intellect, translating higher-order meanings into human understanding. Explanation: the intellect is optimized for multiplicity, comparing, classifying, and parsing differences. The heart perceives coherence within that multiplicity, how elements relate to a larger meaning. In Sufi epistemology, this mode of knowing is sometimes called ilm ladunk, knowledge that arises from within awareness rather than from external inference alone. Scientific parallels. Contemporary work on the heart-brain axis shows dense bidirectional communication via autonomic pathways, including the vagus nerve, while claims vary across research programs. A conservative synthesis is clear. Cardiac rhythms correlate with emotional regulation and perceptual clarity. Practices that stabilize respiration and heart rhythm support attentional control and reduce limbic noise. More broadly, interoception, the perception of internal bodily states, has been linked to improved decision accuracy in complex, uncertain contexts. The mechanism is not magic. It is signal quality. A calmer, better regulated system yields cleaner data for the cortex to interpret. Example: consider the experience of instantly sensing whether to trust someone. This is not irrational guesswork, but rapid integration. Microexpressions, tone, context, prior models, and bodily signals are synthesized into a single appraisal. The intellect may later articulate reasons. The heart's read often comes first. Key insight: the heart does not oppose reason. It expands it into the domain of meaning. Concept. Ibn Arabi distinguishes three levels: his sensation, raw data from the senses; AQL, intellect, analysis, comparison; and rule-based reasoning, QA/LB, heart, integrative, consciousness that apprehends coherence directly. Explanation: knowledge typically begins with perception, is structured by reason, and is completed through the heart's integrative recognition. Modern cognition often halts at the first two stages, treating them as sufficient. Ibn Arabi claims this leaves out the final synthesis, the point at which disparate facts consolidate into a judgment about truth and value. Scientific parallels. Dual process theory, popularized by distinguishes fast, pattern-based judgment, System 1, and slower analytical reasoning. System 2, high-stakes accuracy generally requires coordination, intuitive hypotheses guided and, when needed, corrected by analysis. Effective neuroscience further indicates that emotions function as value signals, prioritizing information and preparing action before full deliberation. Studies of interoceptive accuracy suggest that awareness of bodily signals correlates with better performance in uncertain decision environments. Key insight: the highest intelligence is a field where sensation, reasoning, and intuition are coordinated, each checking and completing the other's. Concept. The heart's reliability depends on calibration. Ibn Arabi uses the image of a mirror. Dust, ego, fear, craving distorts reflection. Polishing restores accuracy. This is not moralism. It is perceptual engineering. Explanation: the heart registers reality more accurately when effective noise is low and intentions are coherent. Totskya Olnafs, refinement of the self, aims at clarity, not suppression. Ethical intention, nija, and self-observation reduce motivated reasoning. The tendency to interpret evidence in ways that confirm desire or avoid discomfort. Scientific parallels. In cognitive psychology, motivated reasoning and confirmation bias are robust findings. Mindfulness-based training enhances prefrontal regulation of subcortical reactivity, reducing the probability that strong emotion will hijack interpretation. Neuroplasticity studies on compassion and gratitude indicate that repeated practice reshapes networks involved in perspective taking and self-referential processing. Example, in anger, most data appear as threats. In calm, the same data distribute across multiple interpretations, allowing proportional response. Calibration is the difference between a compass swinging wildly and one that settles on north. Key insight. Purification is not the rejection of emotion. It is the regulation that restores cognitive and moral precision. Concept for Ibn Arabi. The heart is the meeting point between the finite self and the infinite al-haq. Insight ilham, and in prophetic contexts, revelation waki, are described as occurring in the heart, not as sentiment but as a change in the state of perception. Explanation, when the heart is clear, truth can present itself without being forced through rigid preconceptions. This is akin to expertise, recognition before full articulation. The intellect then translates the recognition into concepts, arguments, or actions. Scientific parallels. Research on peak experiences and creative insights suggests that breakthrough moments often arise when analytical control relaxes and large-scale networks integrate. Studies in the neuroscience of spiritual experience report decreased activity in regions that enforce rigid self-boundaries and greater cross-network coordination. The lesson is methodological. Certain truths are apprehended when the system shifts into a globally coherent mode. Example, moments of creative synthesis. Ethical certainty or unconditional care often emerge unbidden. Analysis subsequently explains what has already been grasped. Key insight. A purified heart functions as an instrument of revelation, not foretelling the future, but recognizing the present with unusual completeness. The apparent conflict between heart and reason dissolves when functions are correctly assigned. Reason provides structure, tests, and transparency. The heart provides orientation, coherence, and value. Reason without heart becomes technically efficient, yet directionless, able to optimize any goal, including harmful ones. Heart without reason becomes impressionistic, sincere but vulnerable to error. A helpful neurocognitive analogy is hemispheric. Complementarity, while oversimplified accounts should be avoided. It remains useful to say that analytic, categorical processing and holistic, relational processing must cooperate. In Sufi terms, the heart intellect names this integration. The practical criterion is simple. Does a judgment both withstand rational scrutiny and generate inner stability rather than agitation? Key insight. Truth is neither against reason nor apart from feeling. It is the synthesis of both, analysis illuminated by a well-regulated heart.